Sam Robinson was born in Bay Center, Washington, tracing his Chinook ancestry from his father. Sam is descended from Thomas. Chief of the Little Pond, am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay, and signer of the Anson Dark Treaty in 1851. Sam's family moved to the center where when he was a child, and to frequently back to Bay Center with his Chinook relatives. Sam began to take a deeper interest in the Chinook and just ancestry and began to attend council meetings where he met the broader Chinook community. Eventually, Sam was fully elected to the tribal council. He served an important role in publicizing the tribe's efforts towards recognition and restoration. He traveled to Washington, D.C. to lobby and testified for tribal restoration.
Our Zoom folks are wondering if you could stand a little further away. There's an echo.
In addition to his contribution as a political leader, Sam has also been involved with the Chinook cultural revival. He's active in the tribe's canoe family and the annual intertribal canoe journey. He helped with the revival of the first salmon ceremony at Fort Columbia and Plank House, which is prone to the other tribes. Sam also works as an artist, making canoe panels that are sold all over the world. Artistic skills help revive Chinook wood carving traditions and have generated public interest in Chinook history and culture. Please welcome Sam Robinson.
Hi, I'm Micah Shix. Hello, my friends. It's good to be here. Like it was said, my name's Sam Robinson. My father was Scott Robinson. His mother was Dora Clark. Dora Clark's mother was Annie Hawks, and Annie Hawks' father was John Hawks. And John Hawks was actually enrolled Shoalwater Bay, Chinook, and he was married to Nellie Cecina, who was a Chehalis woman. And then John's father was, as it said, Thomas Huxwell, who was the signer of the 1851 Anson Dark Treaty. And he was a headsman of Lower Chinook, and his wife, Chais, or Catherine George, my third great grandmother, was a high status Willapa woman, and that's why I'm able to be here today. So many times when I talk, I always travel with a drum, so I like to start us with a bit of a Chinook blessing song, because I always feel that it's important to, thank the Saatway Tyee or the chief above, for, what he's provided for us today and the safe travels and just to look after these folks, that are fighting these terrible fires as well, to keep us safe. So I want to start with a song. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, Capitol or you know, and we were having a winter gathering that day. And at that winter gathering, I gifted him a raffle that I had made. And we were started talking about it, you know, and he said, well, I don't make raffles anymore, I make drums. And he started telling me about a little bit about here. And so the next winter gathering came up, and Tom Spears, you know, from the Duwamish came to me. He says, what do you think? This is, and I said, that's a beautiful design, Tom. Tell me about it. And he told me it was the Duwamish creation story, you know, and he explained that to me. And I said, wow, that's just beautiful. I mean, and he said, here. I go, what? He said, it's for you. I want to play that rattle. You haven't played that rattle yet. You've been destined. So he gives us drum so you play that rattle. So, you know, we can still carry on those traditions, you know, and other tribes, you know, relationships with other tribes. Some of you may know that the Duwamish are not very recognized, you know, and they're Chief Seattle people, you know, and they fight the battle as well, you know, as Chinook. So keep them in your heart as well. I have a few notes here to make sure I cover everything I'm supposed to. But I think I'm supposed to do a land acknowledgement next. So. Came off the hills and they came onto the river as you know, as some of the villages were evacuated because of malaria or smallpox, and so they came into the picture on this river. But anyway, I asked David Harrelson from Grand Island to send me a little something to share with you guys today. So, Vancouver, Washington, is on the indigenous lands of the Cascade and Multnomah Chinook people. These Chinookan language-speaking people confederated with the families south of the Columbia River and signed the Willamette Valley Treaty in 1855. A whole section of the treaty addresses these people and their land on the northern shore of the Columbia River in southwest Washington. It is stated specifically that they would be compensated for their land at a later date. That date has never come. The people under this treaty were removed to Grand Ronde Reservation. Today, ancestors of these people live on as members of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. The Native people of this place have lived here for thousands of years and and served as traditional stewards of the land. The people's relationship with the land enabled them to flourish. We must acknowledge and appreciate the persistence of this area's Native people. And then it goes on to talk about in Southwest Washington that in 2000, the Cowlitz tribe was federally recognized, you know, just a little head of Chinook there at the time, you know, and then they established a reservation here, you know, so just a little bit about that. So. And I could say that, you know, did we use this land in this area? Yes, because we traded here. So if they were pulling roots or something from this area, we would benefit from that as we're traveling through to visit our cousins all the way up to Kalilo. So this is our flag for the Chinook Indian Nation. You know, often I'll be at events like when I was at the closing of the Lewis and Clark commemoration. We were all standing up there, you know, under the arches and waiting to come down the stairs, and so many people walked by and said, "You guys have the neatest flag," you know. It doesn't have any words on it like most Indian flags, you know, tribal flags, but we're pretty proud of our design. This design was created by Tony Johnson, our cultural chair, and chairman today.
Hold on a minute. We were while you were doing your we have it on you, so I need to bring up your so my Zoom audience can see your PowerPoint.
I'm good with that.
All right, let's.
I got some notes that Tracy sent me to, you know, to do some talking points for you all.
Okay, so I'm keeping an eye on our Zoom audience.
We're good.
Is it sugar?
Can you guys see the PowerPoint now? Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
Meg's my technical support on the other end, and Judy Zider, thank you. I've got a lot of help.
Why I'm not being able to move it. Here.
It was working.
Yeah.
That's all right. When you're ready, just say. Oh,
In fact, have you just change it? That'd be fine.
Zoom is taking over.
So first thing I want to talk to you about who were the Chinook people on this Columbia River. The Chinookan, people, first thing when the Europeans came in, they termed Chinookan because they always like to match people up that spoke a common language. So all of our relatives up and down the river were speaking a Chinookan dialect. And so if you were to come on the Columbia River 500-600 years ago and beyond, you would have seen these folks out here, Chinook people. You would have known you belonged on this Columbia River because you would have had a flattened head. And they did that at birth, in the cradle boards. So that's how you could identify that people were, belonged on this river. So if you're a roundhead, you probably didn't come down onto the river, and there was a lot of Chinook people here, a lot. I mean, in this area here, Soapy's Island, Washougal, both sides of the river. Dr. Ken Ames, who worked on the Catholic Oil Dig with us, said that this was the most densely populated area in North America, even while the 13 colonies were being settled on the other side, because there was around 50,000 Chinook people living in this area alone. So a huge amount of folks. You would see Chinook people all the way from Tillamook Head up to the mouth of the Columbia River, from the Willapa Bay to the Columbia River, and then all the way up to Celilo. So often people will mistake, when they think Chinook, they think of everybody. And I got to remind them, these tribes, these different tribes and bands signed treaties. And when they signed these treaties, some of those upper river got, like the Wassaw and so forth, got moved to Warren Springs or Yakima. The 3 tribes in this Middle River area got moved to Grand Ronde. Our 5 tribes down at the mouth of the Columbia River signed a treaty in good faith, and we refused to move anywhere. Originally they wanted to move us to Yakima, but we refused to leave the boat of our ancestors, so we remained in our territory, downriver from Kalama. Dr. Stephen Beckham, who was our ethnohistorian during the recognition process, wrote an article in the Seattle PI, a wonderful article. And in that article, he compared our leaders to the pharaohs on how we controlled the Columbia River like the pharaohs controlled the Nile. This, whoops, we're back.
Oh, back.
Yeah. I don't know if I got my oh, there you go. That mountain in the background, I always like to share this picture because that mountain in the background is Saddle Mountain. And Saddle Mountain can be seen from Cannon Beach, Seaside, Astoria. You can see for a long ways. But that is where all of our Chinook people came from. That's where our creation story begins, and at a risk of taboos, I'll tell you a little condensed version of that story. In Chinook, we strongly believe in these little taboos, and one of them is telling stories out of season. Certain stories you cannot tell out of season. And so you have to, that time is from the first frost until the frogs start singing is when you can really tell the story. But I'll tell you a condensed version of our creation story. Old Man Southwind was coming up the coast one year, and he came up along about to where the mouth of the Columbia River was, and he met this giantess, this woman, and he said, "Hey, I'm hungry. Do you have any food for me?" And she said, no, but I'll give you a net and you can catch a fish. And so, but she told him, but when you catch that fish, remember, you can't cut it across. You got to cut it up the back, because that was a taboo for Chinook people. Well, that was a taboo before Chinook people. And so he catches a small whale. and he decides he's gonna go ahead and cut it, but what does he do? He cuts it across the back. And as he cut it across the back, this thunderous sound came out of that whale, and Thunderbird popped out of that whale and flew to the top of Saddle Mountain. And when the Thunderbird flew to the top of Saddle Mountain, it created a nest and laid eggs. You know, so the giantress, she got wind of that, and she decided she's going to go up and check that food out, you know, those eggs. And as she cracked them open, she thought they were rotten, and she threw them down the hill. And as she threw them down the hill, Chinook people popped out of those eggs. You know, so we all descend from Thunderbird. So in the meantime, Thunderbird came back, and Thunderbird wasn't happy, so Southwind hightailed it back down the coast. The giantress disappeared, but in the spring, you know, you'll hear the thunder, and and the lightning, and the wind will be blowing up from the south, and that's Southwind and the Thunderbird coming back looking for that giant. So that's our creation story, and that's where all Chinook people came from. And that canoe there, we are canoe people. You know, part of you know, our connection was with the rivers. You know, we had no horses, and often people say, hey, how about your teepees and your horses? And we had no teepees. We had no horses. We didn't need them, you know. And so if you look at the maps, you know, they tend to follow the streams and so forth, you know, where we were at. And so there's all sizes of canoes. This canoe is a pretty good sized canoe. This canoe is 36 feet long, 6 feet wide. This canoe was a gift to us from the Clark family. Because during the Lewis and Clark commemoration, we kind of made a few of them feel guilty about the one that their ancestors stole from our ancestor on the way back. You know, and then eventually some things happened, and we were able to get this canoe, wonderful canoe. His name's Clothmeen, and Clothmeen was the headsman on the village on the south shore where the canoe was stolen from. And we were able to use his name because he had no descendants. And his name came from the old word Clothmeen, which meant moon. And so as we're out by the mouth of Columbia River, obviously we respect the tides and the moon. So we felt it appropriate that this become Clothmeen. And Clothmeen is a ocean-worthy canoe, you know, small on the scale of what our ancestors had. I mean, the ancestors were known to have canoes that were 50 feet long, and they said would hold 7,000 pounds of cargo coming out of Alaska or wherever they were traveling. And but we could take this out of the Willapa Bay. We hook a right. 4 days later, we're up at Nia Bay with the macaw, and then we decide whether we're going into Canada or down into Seattle. And so we feel pretty comfortable being in this canoe out in the ocean. So go ahead and move on there.
All righty.
And then this is that 1851, one of the 1851 treaties that was signed down at Tansy Point, which is down by Warrenton. And I always like to point out that, well, maybe I can point out that Huxwell here, that is my great grandfather's ex there, you know, and he signed that treaty in good faith. You know, like I said, we did not want to leave the bones of our ancestors. So Anson Dart realized that, you know, there was a scramble to, you know, get our land properly. Because, you know, world doctrine says there's 2 ways to take land: 1, to buy it; 2, to go to war and take it. And so they scrambled down there. They wanted us to move to Yakima. Our people did not want to move to become somebody else. They wanted to stay with the bones of the ancestors. And then when Anson Dart was speaking to the folks that they'd already given our land to, the Bostons, we call most of the white people Bostons because they were all coming from Boston. You know, and the Boston Chinook people were pretty friendly, and they didn't really see a reason to move us. So he allowed us to stay in that treaty. So, and then that treaty was taken back to Washington, D.C. It's still set back there unsigned. Part of it was there were maybe 1 or 2 people that you know, got a hold of somebody and said, don't sign it. It didn't move us out of the way. One of those people was a gentleman named Washington, and Washington was in our treaty. We made sure he was in our treaty that he would be moved out of our area because he was bigoted to Chinook, and they put that in the treaty that he would be moved, and they did move him. So we think they acted on our treaty. because they moved Washington out. That's one of the things. But the other thing, they were told not to worry about Chinook because we were so infected with malaria that we'd be gone. We'd already lost 95% of our population on this river. So we can go ahead and go to the next one. So 4 years later, they realized that we hadn't perished. They invited us to the Chehalis River Treaty. They invited us along with the Quinault, the Chehalis, the Cowlitz, and Chinook. It was a 3-day treaty with Governor Stevens and the governor of the territory. And on day one, Stevens would take off his hat and say, "See this hat? I will fill it full of gold if you sign these treaties." And we refused to sign those treaties. Our ancestors said, "We've got a treaty. You need to honor that treaty. We're not going to leave the bones of our ancestors." By day 3, Stevens said, "See those ships we came in on? If you don't sign those treaties, we're going to put you all in and take you out and drown you." Once again, our ancestors refused, and he left. So, to me, you know, the blue coats were down there. They were down on the Columbia River at that time, and they could have went to war with us, but then Civil War broke out, and all the blue coats went away. So I strongly feel that this Civil War helped save Chinook, you know, by getting those people out of our territory. And the ironic thing was, so people did not know how to hunt when they were down there, the blue coats. They would actually give rifles to Chinook people, go out to find them deer and elk and so forth. Yeah, we had good relations. We had always had good relationships with anybody that's living in our territory. This is our tribal office. It was gifted to us from one of our tribal members. Her mother had lived in it. You know, it was built for a hereditary chief, and so that's how we exist down in a little town called Bay Center, Washington. It's on a little down. It's on the east side of the Willapa Bay. You know, you can look across and see Long Beach Peninsula, and you can see the ocean out there. So it's a little fishing town. But that's how we exist today. You know, we're slowly getting a little bit of land back. You know, like you know, we're able to buy our treaty grounds at 7.5 acres, and the key to that is that everybody in our tribe today is related to somebody that's standing on that land at the time the treaties were signed. So very important. But yeah, we exist kind of neatly there. You know, often, you know, Chinook's always been in high demand, so our resources are small, so it makes it a little more difficult to get out and get into the schools and so forth, you know, but you know, I try to do my best, you know, in this community, but I have a day job as well, but soon they're going to find out I'm retiring, you know, I'll get super busy. So I wanted to talk a little bit about canoe journeys. You know, we've been traveling on canoe journeys, I'm thinking, for probably the last 20 years. Those canoe journeys often take us to various places. This is our canoe family, or a good portion of our canoe family. The canoe journey started out on the coast during the Centennial Accord, so it's probably about 28 years ago, or maybe a little longer than that. And what had happened was they realized they had people that hadn't connected with their ancestors in a long time, or they had people that hadn't been sober for 28 days in a row, or whatever it may be. You know, there was a need to make that connection, and there was a need for that healing. So they took 3 canoes out of the Quinault area. They paddled around the Horn and down into Seattle. And when they did that, you know, it just started growing with more people building canoes, you know, event. And so they just kept paddling, and each year a different tribal host. So, you know, like for instance, this is the Sequamis. They were hosting that year. This is the 20th anniversary of the paddle. And there's a lot of people arriving. This is half of them. The other half are on the other side of the bridge, so I couldn't get them all in one picture. But people are coming. People are actually coming from inland Canada. And it takes 26 days to get to the Seattle area from inland Canada. They'll come through the rivers and down and in. People from either side of the island, people up the coast, people everywhere. So by the time these 105 to 110 canoes arrive, and they bring in their elders and their youth and everybody else that, you know, aren't in the canoes, there's about 10,000-12,000 Indians arriving on this host tribe. And then they get to feed you every day, you know, for 5 or 6 days, you know, because that's how long the singing and dancing, the protocols go on. Because as we're traveling along, you know, we start in our territory, we leave, and we come to somebody and we say, we're tired, we're hungry, we traveled a long ways, we'd like permission to come ashore. That tribe will grant us permission to come ashore. They say, we'll get you something to eat, we'll get you showers, and then we'll feed you a meal, and then you show your gratitude by, you know, maybe doing a few songs in their community. Usually we gift an elder of that, you know, maybe some of the help that helped to do it, you know, and then we pick those folks up and move on. And we just keep doing that until we all merge into one area. And then when we merge into one area, everybody's got to sing and dance. So they start from the furthest away. And it seems like for the last several years, the furthest away are the Maori tribe, because they come and join Chinook and Grand Ronde in our canoes. So they're the furthest. Last time we had journey before COVID, there was indigenous people from Thailand, indigenous people from Japan, indigenous people from Hawaii that had traveled over to be in different tribes canoes to be part of this journey. So a lot of culture going on. I always tell people that this event's open to the public, you know, and they will feed you too. So if you like seafood, and all these tribes are extremely proud of their seafood, it'd be great to you know, look for it. Now next year we are going to have journey again, and we're pretty happy about that. We'll be on the waters, and we'll be paddling to Muckleshoot. So we'll probably be landing in the Olympia area. So that's one of the closer areas you can reach, you know, by journey. So the journeys are really important in fact that a lot of these tribes didn't stay in their own area, and they didn't keep their culture, but by having journeys, then they had to figure out how do we go out and gather materials, you know, to weave, you know, because when you gather materials, you just don't go out and start pulling and picking and stuff. You got to have that spiritual connection. You know, for instance, if you're pulling cedar bark, you go up and you find a tree you want, you make sure you get that connection and ask for permission to pull a little strip of cedar about this wide and as high as you can pull it for making hats or clothing and so forth. And then when you're done, you leave it for the song and maybe a gift of tobacco. And I've been out in the forest and I've seen trees that, you know, are hundreds of years old where that star has sealed up and where our ancestors pulled bark, you know, so it doesn't hurt the tree at all, you know, and so we got to be totally respectful of that. And plus we got to learn how to process it and so on. So it's really brought back a lot of culture, a lot of songs, and a lot of canoes. Because a lot of these folks did not have canoes. So as you can see, there's quite a variety of canoes there. We'll go ahead and move on to the next picture. And like I said, Klopkeen's a big canoe. You know, this is the way we carry the canoes when we come in. And often I'll hear people say, "That's a big one," when they have to go down and pull them up. You know? There's about 40 people under this canoe, and I can tell you, when you're under that canoe carrying that canoe with 40 people, you swear you're the only one carrying it. You know, it's a big canoe. You see that little emblem on the front of the canoe there? That's a serpent, and that serpent has a deer head. And we painted that on there because we wanted to. Our ancestors would have painted that on there when they were traveling past Quinault, because often Quinault didn't have good history. So we just wanted to put it on there to see. They may not remember, but we wanted to see if they got feelings when we landed in their beach. So yeah. So, and a little bit about that I'll talk about maybe a little bit later, is that build our recognition, held it up, and get it overturned. So that's the other thing too. So, but.
Yeah,
and then, of course, this is fine. This is Chais, Catherine George. This is my third great grandmother, Will Hall woman that I spoke about. And she has a wonderful climbing basket down there. This photo was taken by Curtis when he was traveling around and taking pictures of Indians, you know, and from my house in Bay Center, I can walk through the park and down onto the beach right where she's, you know, getting that picture taken. And I have one of her beautiful baskets that it looks like new. It's just a wonderful basket. She was, like I said, she was a high status woman. It's hard to tell, but she does have a flattened head. And her and a gentleman named Charles Colpise were the last two people with flattened heads at the time. You know, a little bit about the flattened heads, you know, I mean, if let's say a chief was outside of what was going on in the Columbia River, but he wanted that connection, he may flatten his daughter's head at birth, hoping that he could marry into what was going, have her married into what's going on in the river. And that chief on the river, you know, might say, well, I will marry her, for instance, let's say she's Cowlitz and they have those wonderful Spanish prairies up there. You know, and I said, well, yeah, I'll marry her because I'll have access to all those wonderful Spanish prairies. You know, so you're marrying resources when you marry a woman, you know, and Tom Conley, Chief Tom Conley was a dominant chief at the time. Well, he was actually pushed out there by his mother. And his mother was a high status woman on the north shore of the Columbia River down by the mouth. And she didn't want to deal with the boss, and so she took her son and pushed him out on the limelight. Said, here, you deal with him. And he became a real high status man. And so wind that moves into the coast, you know, from the east.
And why is it called a Chinook wind?
Well, I think, you know, I don't know these people, you know, in the dark territory named it. We didn't name it Chinook wind. You know, and the casino Chinook winds.
Right.
It has nothing to do with Chinook. You know, that's the last. You know, so they named it after the wind. They didn't name it after us. So.
But a cold wind is something other. What is a cold wind?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Can you guys see the, okay, we're ready.
Ready?
Are we on?
We're back.
Ooh, hello. So what is federal recognition of tribes? We can go ahead and click the next one there. Federal recognition, the U.S. government acknowledges the right of Indian tribes as sovereign entities. A federal recognized tribe has government-to-government relationships with the United States. I can tell you that Chinook today, we have government-to-government relationships with a lot of different agencies, but they don't give us the federal status that we need to take care of our people. Go ahead and move on. Many tribes receive federal recognition through treaties, which we did sign, executive orders, which we asked for but didn't get. Today tribes can receive federal recognition through acts of Congress, federal administrative actions, or federal court decisions. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that in the next section. Generally, in return for taking tribal lands, the U.S. promised to preserve the tribe's rights to peace, protection, annuities, and services. This includes access and benefits such as housing, healthcare, education, food, and other basic needs, all of which we do not have. Go ahead. Tribes without recognition can petition for the status, but the Bureau of Indian Affairs acknowledges that its system is broken and can take decades to consider applications. The list of tribes waiting for recognition is long. I can say that, you know, when we first applied for federal recognition in 1973, they told us it was only going to take a couple years. 23 years later, we got our recognition. You know, and so it was more than just a few years. And even that was a challenge because at one time they did a preliminary decision after about 10 years, and they said, well, you can't prove that you're active in the 20s, 30s, you know, that you're having meetings, that you're you know, in charge of a community. And our answer was, well, what are you talking about? It's illegal for 3 Indians to stand in the street and talk to each other, let alone have these illegal meetings at that time. So we were able to actually gather that material. We went into people's barns, attics, basements, pump houses, wherever we could, and found that we could share that information when they were having those illegal meetings. And so we provided about another 2,500 pages. When we went through the federal recognition and they stacked all the paperwork that we submitted as evidence of our continuous, you know, being out in the communities and dealing with bosses or whatever it may be, that paperwork would stack 8.5 feet high. So I would say we're probably one of the most well-written about tribes in the Northwest, yet not recognized. We'll go ahead and move ahead there. The Chinook Indian Nation is a sovereign nation. Inheriting that status from our land and our ancestors, and we expect to be treated as such. That is our inheritance, and we strongly believe that. And often I'll hear from tribes that are federally recognized say that, you know, it's probably the most sovereign nation around, because first thing, we haven't we take care of ourselves.
Next.
Okay. So now we'll talk a little bit about the fight. You
Oops.
know, like I said, we've been fighting for a long time. You know, we got the treaty signed early on, never to be ratified. You know, we go ahead back. We, you know, we've been treated as Indians all along. You know, I mean, I had great aunties who went to boarding school as Indians, and often people did. We have land in trust as Indians. I have an individual Indian money account. Fishing rights until the late 70s. We signed fish tickets, you know, as Chinook, and yet they don't recognize us as Indians today. So it's pretty ironic. So this is up. You back her up a little bit.
Back up.
Yeah. So yeah, go one more up. Yeah, you go to where those people are standing.
Up.
Yeah,
Okay.
forward there.
Number 18.
Oh, we were. This is when we filed our lawsuit up in Tacoma. That was about 5-6 years ago. We were suing for 3 things. One, we were suing to be federally recognized because we told the judge that he could recognize us on the spot. We let him know that the Samish tribe was recognized by a federal judge through what they call the RISC Act, and he just felt that it was above his pay grade. He didn't do it. Our attorneys tried to convince him, no, it's not above your pay grade. You're a federal judge. You can do it. You know, and so we didn't get that out of him. The other one was that recognition process that they said was broken. You know, after they decided they were going to rewrite it. I remember, you know, early on, that was about 5 or 6 years ago, they said, well, we're going to rewrite this recognition process. And then I was told that this process was going to, that Chinook would be a poster child for this new process, because it took care of some of the things that not only Chinook, you know, makes it hard for Chinook to do because of what the government was saying was illegal, but that some of these federally recognized tribes that are out there would have a hard time, you know, fulfilling that obligation as well, the treaty signers. And so we were. I remember a call. We got a call one day, you know, from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and the gentleman was going to go over what this new process was all about. And we're feeling kind of good about it, but we heard rumors. So they put the call out. There could have been easily 170 people on this call listening in. I made sure I got on, you know, early, you know, to make sure I was able to talk. And he came on and he started talking, and he said, well, yeah, I only see 2 of you on the call out of all those people that could be there. Do you mind if I ask you who you are? So I told him I'm Sam Robinson, Vice Chairman of the Chinook Indian Nation. The other person was Tony Johnson, Chairman of the Chinook Indian Nation. We were the only 2 people who got on that call. So he told us, he said, well, stop at any time. You know, if you got any questions, so feel free to stop me. So we let him talk for about 5-10 minutes, and then we stopped him. Tony stopped him and asked him. He said, well, Chinook be able to repetition for federal status? And he said, no. And we said, why? He said, well, you've already had your chance. We need these other people to get their chance. Even though that they admitted that the system was broken and they had to rewrite it, and that all they would have to do is go into this, you know, 8.5 feet of paperwork and make sure that we get taken care of right off the bat. They kicked us aside. So don't know what the Bureau of Indian Affairs has against Chinook, but it seems like often they were not doing right by us. And then the third thing is that we, you know, before there was a recognition process, we sued the federal government for our land claim. You know, we sued it for the Lower Chinook and the Placid land of the 5 tribes. And so we got what they call a docket 34. So they came in and they evaluated all our lands, you know, all the way to Seaside, Tillamook, up the river ways, you know, in that Astoria, Ilwaco, up to about Catland. They evaluated it. They came in and they did their survey. Cedar trees were worth nothing. Salmon was worth nothing. And they gave us about $47,000 roughly, period, for our land. So we refused to sign the check. We left it in the bank. You know, they invested it for us. And it, you know, it was built, you know, gradually building, but we didn't want to take that. We felt it was a pittance of what they should have really paid us for our land. And so they were sending a quarterly statement for like 20-some years, you know, and then about 5 years ago or 6 years ago, they stopped sending us those statements. And we're like, you haven't sent us our statements on our trust, or on land, our docket 234 land in a while. What's going on here? And they told us, they said, well, you're not a federally recognized tribe. And what we told them was, is we're the people you gave the land to, and there was no recognition process for at least 3 years after you gave us the money. So we sued for that. The judge did rule that it was arbitrary and capricious, threw it back to DIA and said that they need to take care of it properly. So we were waiting as usual, and we get, you know, luckily we have friends in good places, and we get a call, you know, our chairman gets a call from Symposium Grand On and said, did you know that the federal government has issued a letter to 47 Northwest tribes, and they asked those tribes who in your tribe are Clatsop and Lower Chinook, because they have a scholarship distribution they want to hand out. They didn't call us. They're giving away our money. You know, so once again, what's the BIA up to? I always say BIA stands for bad Indian attitude. That's what they create. So anyway, they had a hearing. A lot of our friends, you know, once we also found out through the grapevine that they were having a hearing, so we were able to call in and get in on the hearing. And everybody that was on the hearing spoke up. There was council members from Grand On, and there were some select people that were on there. And the big thing was, let me back up a little bit, but when we were in court, the selects came in trying to get our docket 234 money. The judge kicked them out. You know, first thing he said is, what their excuse was, not knowing that we're going for the money. Well, we saw these headlines that Chinook was going for recognition, but we didn't know that they were going for the docket 234 money. And the judge said, well, had you or your attorneys click the link, you would have known what the whole thing was about. You know, and where were you for the last 40 years? So it kicked them out anyway. But they were after it too again in this series. So, but anyway, the judge, you know, there were some certain things went on, and at the end result was the BIA ruled that they're going to go ahead and only deal with Chinook on the distribution of the funds. So we're working on a distribution plan, which is great. The ironic thing is that even though it comes from the Bureau of Indian Affairs to Chinook, as Indians being paid for their land, they put a little note down the bottom that this decision in no way acknowledges the recognition. So we'll keep that in our back pocket. Anyway, so at the federal building. So we'll go through this real quick here.
It's giving me troubles. There we go.
There we go. The 5 tribes of the Chinook Indian Nation signed treaties with the federal government in 1851 that were never ratified by Congress. We refused to leave our lands. Okay. So we have 5 tribes. We have the Willapa and the Lower Chinook, and then the Wakayakum. And so Oak Point's about, you know, right about where Klamath is. Then we got the Kathlama and the Clatsop in Oregon. For a long time, when we were talking to people in Oregon, we tried to tell them we were an Oregon tribe, and they just, no, you're a Washington tribe. So we were only dealing with the politicians in Washington. When we bought our treaty grounds, our treaty grounds is right about in here.
Underneath the Lower Chinook.
Yeah. It opened everybody's eyes. All of a sudden, the people in Oregon, they wanted to talk to Chinook. They wanted Chinook at the table for this and that. And so now we're going to, you know, in the next week or so, we're going to be talking to Jeff Merkley, you know, as well. You know, so we're going to work that angle on that side, because now we're acknowledged as an Oregon and Washington nation. So I would tell people that river was not a divider. That river was a highway. So yeah. So that's our territory all the way down there to Tillamook Head. You know, and that's our traditional territory. Okay, we can go with the next one. In 1953, the federal government terminated the federal status of the Chinook Nation and over 100 tribes across the United States. So we're not the only ones in the battle. There's a lot of other tribes out there, but there has been tribes that have been recognized over the years. The Little Shell Chippewa of Montana, mirror image of Chinook. We had the recognition pulled, and they were able to get a bill passed. You know, and the ironic thing was, you know, often I got told it's one party or the other that's gonna take care of you. Well, the bill actually got passed under the Trump administration, even though, you know, you may not agree with Trump, but he got something done. And 3 tribes in Virginia were acknowledged. So that's what we tell the senators today, that if the Republicans can get tribes recognized, they're much more powerful, that they should be able to get Chinook recognized today. You know, and all I have to do is grab our bill. We put a bill in their hand, and they haven't grabbed our bill yet. In 1979, we petitioned the Bureau of Indian Affairs for federal recognition, and after decades of collecting historical legal evidence, the Chinook Indian Nation was formally recognized in 2001. I came on the Tribal Council in 2001. We were a federally recognized tribe. And I tell people today that, you know, I've been on council for 21 years, just got elected for another 3-year term. But for the last 20 years, I've been battling for federal status, you know, so how soon things can change. We were very proud of that day. We were preparing for ceremony, you know, we're waiting for everything to be finalized. And it was 18 months later that our recognition got overturned. What happened was on the 89th day of an appeal process, the Quinault tribe appealed our recognition long enough to hold it up to get it into the next administration. Now they appealed Cowlitz too, but Cowlitz recognition happened in 2000. So there's carried through, but if you do anything within 18 or, you know, so many months of at the end of a you know, president's term, that can be automatically overturned, and that's what happened to us. We fell into that. Yes.
What reason did the Quinault give for appealing the recognition? Is it like a limited amount of funding and they're all fighting for, or what?
You know, they didn't really give a great reason. I don't think they had to. All they had to do was appeal. You know, and but we kind of know different reasons why they might want to you know, keep us unrecognized.
So it was a native tribe that appealed. It wasn't.
That tribe, I said we
It
often,
wasn't the Boston.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about that as we move on, because a year and a half later, the U.S. government rescinded our federal recognition. And you can go to chinookjustice.org and learn more about that. First thing, they don't have 18 months to do that. You know, there's rules on how long you have to overturn the recognition, but they drug it out for 18 months and overturned it. I would like to say that, you know, it was during the Lewis and Clark commemoration that it got overturned. We knew that they were going to make a final decision, and at the time that they were going to make that final decision, our chairman and his wife were back in Washington, D.C. at a luncheon, and George and Laura Bush invited the chairmen and presidents of all the federally recognized tribes along the Lewis and Clark Trail. So we felt really good that Gary Johnson, our chairman, was back to, you know, acknowledged as a, you know, a federally recognized tribe. And it was like 3 days later, they were walking along the street. It was about 4:30 on I believe it was a Friday, that some lower staffer called and told them that they pulled our recognition.
Theater.
So that was a sad day. So today, you know, we're really pushing hard. We're pushing hard. Like I said, we put our bill into the senator's hands, probably in January, and they haven't moved on it. You know, and we're trying to drum up a lot of support. We've got a lot of resolutions from different people from here all the way to the Columbia River. We got support letters from tribe, you know, thousands of letters that have come in. And so I would encourage people, if you know somebody influential, you know, I brought some cards here that can hand it to them and say, hey, here's more about Chinook, you know, and we support Chinook, and this injustice needs to be taken care of. We had a rally up in the federal building in Seattle. And it was kind of interesting, you know, because that's where Campbell and Murray's office are. And, you know, we hadn't heard anything from them in a while, you know, and it's like, you know, and they had some demands for us, we took care of. And it was just one of the movie, you know. So when we decided we're going to do the rally, and their head, you know, Campbell head staff was on the end of it. It's like he calls Tony Johnson, our chairman, and says, what are you guys doing? I said, we're having a rally. And, well, why are you having it in Seattle? Why don't you have it in Vancouver? They have offices there. And I said, well, because this is where we want to have it, you know, we wanted the high profile, you know, and I think somewhere along the line, he asked Tony, he said, you really think this is gonna work? And Tony said, you called me. So I think we got there, we really didn't, they didn't give us a really good answer at the end when the press asked them. But I think we definitely got their vision, and we know we've got a lot of support. It traveled, you know, it's just traveled all the way to the East Coast. There's a whole bunch of news people that picked it up, you know, so we're feeling really good about that. And I'm sure we're gonna have more of these as long. I'm hoping that we'll have one in Vancouver, because I know we have hundreds of supporters in Vancouver. Problem in Seattle was that when you get a permit, they only permit you to 51 people. We could have had hundreds of them up there if it wasn't for the limitation. So. Also, the other thing is, you know, because it's in Duwamish territory and they're fighting federal status, I think they're a little bit concerned about that. But Cecile Hansen from the Duwamish did come and support Chinook and welcome us into their territory as properly done. So we felt really good about that. And then,
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay, so Chinook Justice Now, that's our model. You know, we need to take care of that now. We've been very fortunate to have some support, you know, from different philanthropy groups, and one of them gave us a lot of money to do PR work. So we've had PR training to let people know how to talk and what kind of stories we want to get out there, and just, you know, being able to get to the press, and so you'll be seeing more and more about Chinook here in the future. Just any questions?
Questions? Nobody asked you.
There was something I was going to come back to. Do you remember what it was?
Is there a distinction between federal recognition and federal status?
That would be the same thing. You have federal status to recognize by the federal government. You know, I say we're recognized by the federal government because we deal with all the city and county and state federal agencies to a point, but they don't give us anything for anything. I mean, we have no house, we have no elder care, we have no mental health care or medicine or anything. You know, I mean, Tony Johnson. Yeah, we would have all that if we were recognized. And Tony Johnson, our chairman at the rally, told the story about he lost a whole branch of his family to suicide. You know, the mother committed suicide, and a few years later, the son, and a few more later. You know, I mean, if we had that ability to take care of our people, things would be better. One of our former chairman and a veteran, you know, couch surfing and died of cancer because he couldn't get the medication that he needed to fight cancer because we don't have any medical. And so we really need to take care of, you know, be able to take care of our people. But when I talk about taking care of the people, you know, it's bigger than us. Chinook has always been good, you know, and our plan is to, you know, build a health clinic, you know, that our people can go to and get all those services, but have it open to the community at Pacific County. I mean, Pacific County is one of the poorest counties in the state of Washington, and we've always been good to the people that are non-Chinook, and we want to continue to be good. You know, and if Chinook gets recognized, we would create jobs, whether we put in a fish cannery, put our labels on, whatever. Chinook can only improve Pacific County if we're recognized, you know, and we just try to, that's one of the things we want to make sure people know, that we care about our neighbors. Right now we have limited resources, you know, we're fortunate enough to get fish from the fish hatcheries, the state hatcheries. So we're able to do that. We're able to get deer and bear through a roadkill program, you know, where if a deer or animal gets hit by a car, that the state patrol or will call us and say, hey, come pick it up, and we're more than happy to pick up those resources and get them out to our people. You know, so we're surviving like that.
Meg has a question.
Yeah. You got a question?
Meg?
Yeah. So I was just wondering, what can people who do not belong to the tribe do to help your cause? You know, what are you looking for from, besides educating us? What is it that we would be able to do?
I think what we really want, and you know, I mean, we want people to make those calls, write those letters, and you know, just put pressure on you know, the politicians, both Oregon and Washington side. If you know anybody that's influential, you know, pass that story on, and because it's going to take the community to take care of us, and we will take care of the community when we have that federal status. And like I said, Chinook's in high demand. You know, people always want interpretation or so forth, but our resources are so small, you know, and we look forward to growing and being able to provide, you know, I know there's for instance, there's a thirst of getting into the schools. People want Chinook in the schools, and I would love to have a, you know, a small team of people that would be able to go into any schools and tell our stories and get the word out and educate people about us, and that we're not gone, and that we continue our heritage. And you know, we may be suffering because we didn't sign those treaties, or we didn't get those treaties ratified, or didn't move to somewhere else, but we stayed in our territory, and we are who we are. And when I look at Chinook today, and I look at other tribes that are federally recognized, we have more culture than most of them, because you know, we didn't get sidetracked. You know, we stayed there with the bones of our ancestors, and we know where those villages are today, and we try to protect them. But you know, even today, because we're not federally recognized, we don't have those NAGPRA rights, so we don't have the rights to protect the bones of the ancestors that we refuse to leave.
So I'm assuming Chinook Justice Now is a website that.
Yes, Chinook Justice Now. We have a Twitter account. We have an Instagram, Everyday Chinook. We have a Facebook page for the public. So there's a lot you can learn, a lot more to learn, and our website's wonderful as well.
Well, I think we want to thank Sam for his very informative contribution. We really appreciate you being here. I know you're missing the council meeting.
I'll catch up with you.
But you're welcome to stay for our meeting if you
Yeah, I
want.
want you to know that I did break. I think it's all break. I have some stuff here I would like you guys to have. You know, I got to, we wanted to put something together. You know, make sure they know about Chinook. And we were thinking about a trifle. The photographer said, no, we gotta do better than that. So we put this together. And this is a wonderful tell story, you know, historically and in our battle. It talks a little bit about Quinault and our issues with them and so forth. But it's just a wonderful document. So I want to make sure you all get one of those. And then I got a stack of cards here that if you know people you can give them to. You know, this picture on the front here. This is Chinook Cove. It's down in like Fort Columbia. Then we choose where Chinook Point is. And Chinook Cove is probably, we're thinking, was on Conway's mother lived. And there's a beautiful cove in there. I get in there in a canoe and we do praise to the Lady Washington. But our ancestors who were studying there, they watched those politics and things. A little bit about the politics too, and any ships that came into the Columbia River early on was that Chinook ancestors embarked on the river and take those things out. They go meet those politics and then guide them in. You know, without Chinook, you're much more shipwrecked. You know, so yeah, they're first part about it. And you know, the ironic thing was there were no jetties or anything back in the day, and I don't know any stories of how rough the mouth was. We didn't even complain. And those guys, like I said, they would go out on the mouth of Columbia River, they would hook a right and they did it in lower Alaska, or they would hook a left and they did it in northern California, and that was just crazy. And the interesting thing was when the Boston's came into the territory, and they were up in the sound and up in Alaska and so forth, they realized all these people spoke different languages. They all spoke our language. They all traded with us and they wanted to know our language. So that's why they created the Chinook jargon. They had to go to French and English in there. We created a language that they talked to all these tribes, utilizing. Because our ancestors, if I can, I'll tell one real quick story. Community take us a long ways, and one year, recently, Bella or Bella Coola, up on the northeast tip of Vancouver Island. It's just a small community up there, and an old school community. And they wanted to host, and we couldn't figure out why they wanted to host. First thing, you know, with the growing of the numbers, it cost millions of dollars to host. These people didn't have millions of dollars to host. But we were fine with that, you know, looking forward. You know, we always like going to those people that have your old school, like people don't know. So you say I'm the host 5 years in advance. And so about a year before, they had sticker teams, all the stickers. And first thing that Tony Johnson, our chairman, realized was he was staying with this lady. He did 2 stacks of paper, and it's like, well, what are these? And he said, these are resumes of my daughters. We young ladies out there to marry our women for all their dating. So that's what I wanted to post. You know? Yeah, and it was relationship created. I mean, one time, of course, we have to figure it out. And then the other thing that happened was really cool was that there was a potluck going on where this gentleman was a chief and he wanted to give seafood to his nephew because he had become a kind of recluse. And so there was a 2-day ceremony. And on the second day of the ceremony, some of the elders got up and they were talking about, you know, how languages get lost. You know, a lot of tribes lose their languages. And there was a special language that they had utilized for this particular part of the ceremony. So when Tony Johnson and Bobby McPherson ran on, got up there and they started talking to Chinook-Walla, and the elders were going. It was back. It was our language, our ancestors brought them and used this. So, and for marriage ring. Yeah.
Perfect. I was talking to Sam for a few minutes before the meeting, and he was telling me how sometimes if you go to classes, please, you Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, my.
Appreciate it. We have one more round of applause. Yeah. And let's start with John Braddock, who's going to talk to us about some proposed amendments coming from
the Charter Review Commission. I'm John Latta, and last year I was member of one of the members of the Charter Review Commission, Clark County,
Boom. Oh, sorry, I have the wrong PowerPoint up. And the slideshow. The other one. This
anyway,
is,
there were 15 of us. It was a nonpartisan commission. All of us were elected by our neighbors.
you ready for the next one?
Ready for the next one? This is what a charter review looks like. Actually, not really. They were all virtual meetings, so somebody captured all of our pictures, plugged them into the meeting.
That's cool.
And so last year, you'll remember on the ballot there were 7 charter amendments proposed. And we look at the next.
I'm working
There
it.
we are. And all but one were approved by the voters. We made county elected officers nonpartisan, council positions nonpartisan. We now have 5 council districts instead of 4, and the council chair was chosen by the members of the council. Changed the charter review frequency from every 10 years to every 5 years, and now we have an ethics code. We did not it wasn't approved to establish a DEI office and a DEI commission. But then we had some minor technical corrections, clarify things, edit, make it read more readable, more clear. Next. And before disbanding, okay, that was the 2021 ballot. Before disbanding, we had time to come up with some more stuff. Actually, there was stuff that we hadn't had time to talk about before, still on people wanted to do before the end of the year.
No,
And there are 6 ballot initiatives. This year, there's going to be in ballot November. And the first 3 are, one is ranked choice voting, county offices, all the county offices. They're going to be ranked choice if this is approved after 2026, starting with the 2026 budget. And next is a hiring, requiring the council to consult with other elected officers when hiring a county manager, just because everybody that's kind of working. And we also noticed, number 3, we noticed there wasn't a preamble in this charter. Other charter say, you know, we should have something to identify what this is all about, and it also acknowledges, you know, the history of the area and the peoples that were here before us. Thanks. The other 3 are for elected office vacancies. Right now, you can be up to 90 days before the temporary replacement is appointed. So we're proposing that each elected officer, when they're elected, choose one of their deputies, somebody that already knows the ropes in their office, and they're going to choose them as a replacement, temporary replacement in case of unemployment. Next, the initiative and referendum process right now takes 10% of the number of voters that voted in the last gubernatorial election to get something on the ballot. And we wanted to change that to 8% to be more in line with the other charter counties that have. Also, if it fails to get enough votes or enough signatures to be on the ballot, then we can convert it to a mini initiative, which only takes 3%. Sorry, I know this isn't nearly as interesting, but we wanted to get through it.
hold on, I'm having, well, my Zoom audience is rightfully complaining.
So tell them a colorful story like
Better? Yeah, all right. Did you guys miss the slides? Nod your head. There you go. Let's see. Oh, that's why. Ranked choice voting, transparency in hiring the county manager adds a preamble.
Elected official vacancies, initiative referendum process, and the last one is diversity inclusion officer and commission. This is actually a little bit similar, you might think, to the one that was rejected in 2021, but instead of full organizations, just having one person to the county staff. Volunteer.
Similar to the city?
I think it is a model on Vancouver, on the city name. Next. Okay, where to find more information? There is a very good website, I think, charteryes.org, which explains each of the proposed amendments and why the charter commission chose it. Which is there. That's one why. Well, against that. And there might be some misinformation there. I know about on the some of them I noticed. So here's your judgment. And then the Clark County site, that one's harder to spell it, but on the Clark County site you can get it on charter school. All their collection voter map will pop that soon.
I know we can take a position on ranked choice voting, because we have a state position. Can we take a position on any of the others? And really?
I don't know, I haven't looked into it. We did have a discussion about ranked choice voting and whether or not to take a position on it in the last board meeting, which was Thursday. And the group thought that the membership probably needs more education. So everybody understood exactly what it was. So I'm just gonna do a quick poll. If we can see the people who are at home as well.
I'm gonna stop the share.
Yeah. In terms of familiarity with ranked choice voting, how you do it, what it means, how's it different from what we have right now? Would you say, and I'll go back to each of you, no familiarity, some familiarity, or a lot of familiarity? Let's start with a lot of familiarity about ranked choice voting. A lot of familiarity, what? Stay at home. Did we lose them?
I'm struggling to get the controls back.
Well, you're asking that, can I just interject? Is there any way we could get the word out, this kind of presentation, like an abbreviated thing out for the general public? Because I think people who want to know are going to want to know more.
Oh, let's see.
I'm looking at you. No, just the whole presentation.
Right, so all the things that will be on the ballot.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's going to be in the voter pamphlet, but is there like Reader's Digest or, Charter for Dummies kind of thing? Is that possible? Well, the charter, yes.
Yeah, you can go to charter, yes.
Okay.
And you should get a lot of information, but it's mostly about these amendments that are proposed right now.
Right.
And if you go to the county website, you can see what the charter is. The charter is, we're a charter county, one of, I think, 7 in the state. And so we get to write our own rules within limits, according to the state constitution.
Giving me
So,
trouble.
So if we write the rules.
I haven't quite figured out how to get it to behave.
I had one question. You were talking about the charter now. Can you just explain for everybody what it was you saw, not in terms of how they should vote, but in terms of.
I'll be back.
I don't remember specifically what it was, but I was impressed that it seemed like they were arguing to vote against some of our positions because of stuff that was already in the charter. They didn't understand it wasn't changed.
No, it's frozen.
They were against the preamble because.
This is
they
what
said
I'm
that
saying,
should have
and when
been
I click on it, it says
with
no.
the original charter. Yes, I can't disagree that.
Can't get I can't get the mouse to go there. Oh, there.
Last charter or PU 460. You could still have what problems you were.
Yeah, I only had 10 minutes.
But it's not being displayed right now.
Yes, we can put just my presentation on there. And I did have resources, we did for the primary, for all of the, anything that was.
Well, I should be able to. I mean, this is what's on my screen. I know, but I shouldn't have to do that. It's all about this video.
Forums, folks, we could do a forum, we could include them. And pros and cons on each.
It's just not. Oh, video.
Briefly. Yeah. Where does the office issues come from?
I know, but it's supposed to be using that camera. Okay.
Part of it is that people are not familiar with it, and part of it is that, like, in New York.
But it's not showing on the.
Democrat youth that are tired. There were a lot of problems, and I think some of it is that ranked choice voting. is a
No,
good
it should be
idea,
this.
but
That should be displaying what's on my screen because
over,
of
so
this
that
connection
they
right
have
here.
staff primaries. So that is part of the problem. It's a good idea, but.
But for some reason,
People haven't really, it's not really adopted generally yet.
the TV.
There are some states that are using it.
Oh,
There's
it's
some
only
states
doing
that
my
are-
desktop right now.
Yes, can do it.
And it's, this is the places that use it.
So it's almost like I need to get out.
That's why she was so.
Yeah.
And then she's like, she's gonna come out very strongly.
Could have come up someday.
Duplicate.
This proposal would just relate to using.
There we go.
Elected county officials who are now nonpartisan.
Right, and our commissions work with the
Click
county
over
auditor's
here.
office, extensively and. And he put through us, he has a chat, all the tools we needed to make it work right. So. I think.
Could you process ballots differently? And it may take a little bit longer. I mean, there are some reasons that people are opposed to it. All right, thank you, John. That was a great update. Nobody's gonna update us on the tax forums soon. Melanie Hadshot and Sharon Brown are co-chairs of the county forum.
Well, we have, hello Zoom folks. We have 4 forums planned. These are for the primary, of course. I have flyers here, I'll make these available to them here, and we'll be handing out some of the Peace and Justice Fair this afternoon. The first is on Monday, September 26th, so that's coming up very soon. It is at the Vancouver Community Library. The library itself closes at 6 o'clock. So our event will start at 6:30, and we will have the Columbia Room, which is the downtown Fort Vancouver Library. When you walk in, right directly to your left is a room called the Columbia Room. And that room is wired so that CBTV can broadcast live from that facility. So that's one of the reasons that we chose that. So that's where the event will be. The public will be invited. And then in terms of the logistics for that facility, since the library is closed, they'll close off that area. You know, as you walk in and there's a cafe and the library books and the library part, since the library is closed, that will be closed off. So we will have the entrance area where the restrooms are and all. And then I'm requesting that they keep the wall and the doors to the Columbia room closed, so that we'll have an entrance to go into that forum room, because we have very strict policies about, you know, being nonpartisan and controlling that area, so that there's no campaigning that goes on. Now we're still working on whether, you know, folks can mill about there in the foyer and do some campaigning, but I wanted to make you members particularly aware of that, because we will be depending on our volunteers to help, you know, to help make sure that that is communicated and enforced in order to keep our forum area by the ground rules and nonpartisan. This is the first time in 3 years that we've had an in-person forum. I was not involved with the league then, so this is all new territory for me. But lots of folks were, and they're helping a lot. So our first one, Monday, September 26th, will be the Clark County Council, Councilor District 1 and Council District 2, and then also the Clark County Auditor. So similar to what we did for primaries, we'll have different panels up front for the candidates. We'll be asking them questions. It's a forum, it is not a debate. And so that will be 3 pairs of candidates that evening. The next event will be October 3rd. That one will be held at the Camas Public Library, and this was part of our efforts to bring the forums out to the community and in geographic areas. So on the October 3rd evening from 6:30 to 8 will be the 17th Legislative District, positions 1 and 2, and the Public Utility District of Clark County, that is Commissioner District number 2. So those events will be held in Camas. And that library has a much smaller space. I plan to go visit it in the next week, and then we will talk about whether that capacity may need to be limited so that we don't overcrowd it. Still working out that logistics. That event will not, unfortunately, be live broadcast. However, CVTV will be there setting up their mobile equipment, and the event will be so that they can rebroadcast at a later time on TV channels. And then, of course, it's available afterwards as a recording also. So that's a bit of a trade-off, but we really prioritized getting out to different places around the county for the candidates to have that reach. The 3rd is October 10th. Again, that's Vancouver Community Library downtown at 6:30. So there can be, the library closes at 6 on Mondays, so that was one of the candidates pointed out to us that Monday night is also city council meetings. So unfortunately, that's conflict. So that is the 49th District and Clark County Sheriff. The 4th event is being held at Washington State University in Salmon Creek at campus. October 12th, that is the 18th Legislative District and the Clark County Council District number 5. So those are regions we were able to secure big lecture hall there at USC. That's the information. We'll be asking for volunteers to greet people. Sharon, and myself, through email. And feel free to talk to either one of us today. Yes, Jane? There you go. I'm gonna hand out flyers. They
Camilla,
are all from 6:30 until 8. That's the default time and then the location. Okay, super, and I'll keep handing these out. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. I'm kind of falling down on my job of being MC and trying to make sure that we finish by noon today, so I'm gonna kind of speedily tell you that, on the Third Congressional District, we are still, negotiating with the two campaigns. Our current attempt is to get something going on the 10th, which would be during the day, because there's already an evening event planned. So, we've got CBTV to agree, but we have to give two campaigns to agree, and then we have to find a location, and this is a lot of negotiating that has to happen. So we're working on it. Jane?
I live in Glenwood Place. Could I copy these and hand them out to anybody who might need?
Certainly, do you have a copier, access to a copier? Yes, you may. Absolutely, we can start that. Anybody who wants to copy these flyers and distribute them wherever, people might pick them up. Yes, let's get the word out. Okay, Sharon's is our new voter services chair, and she has a message this morning as well.
we have some exciting news. We've got 4 voter services events this month. Today, Peace and Justice Fair. Thank you, Lynn Osborne, for working that. And I know the people in here that are doing it. John and Mimi and Teresa Flores.
No, I was the backup.
Oh, that.
The backup was for this morning.
Yeah, the next event, and we're looking for volunteers for that, is a multicultural resource fair. It's gonna be at Clark College Geyser Hall. It's from 11 to 3 p.m. Lois, St. Curran, and myself, Lois is on there. We're going to organizing and learning, let you know that Lois and I have never done voter services table, so we're researching, we're taking pictures.
What's the date on that?
That's the 17th of September, Saturday, September 17th. The next event that we're working with WSU on is National Voter Registration Day. TBD on the times, but it's very exciting. We're talking to them about that, and there's also a Floats or Votes event in October that we're looking at. That one's on Tuesday, September 20th, and then Mimi and John and Mark Anderson and myself and a couple other volunteers are going to the Portland Convention Center, where there'll be a naturalization ceremony, 2 ceremonies. It's a crazy town when they come out, our new citizens, and that's when we generate the most voter registration we ever saw. So, talk to me if you're interested. The voter, it's just exciting times.
I love how you and Melanie both said, you've never done this before, but you're gonna learn how to table, register voters and everything, and you're gonna run the candidate forums, so any new members, just jump in. There's a place for you to help out. Teresa, it's time for the specific stuff and a little information about the October.
Oh, and also, I didn't use all of them because that's not what I was doing. Anyway, all right, so this month is the 16th Amendment. For those of you who are new, we're plotting our way through the constitutional amendments, although actually I find it kind of exciting. So when you think of the 16th Amendment, the state federal income tax, so this is the amendment that caused it. The first income tax was created by Congress in 1861 to finance the Civil War. It placed a flat 3% on all incomes over $800. That's $800 a year. It was modified to a graduated tax. The tax was repealed in 1872. The East, with its industrial and financial markets, prospered, but farmers in the South and West were not faring as well. They formed various political coalitions advocating reforms, including a graduated income tax. In 1894, a 2% tax on income of 4,000 was imposed by Congress. However, the U.S. Supreme Court struck it down, stating that it was a direct tax and not a portion. What does that mean? I'm trying to explain, I find it difficult myself. Until the latter half of the 19th century, the federal government derived most of its income from consumption tax. Alcohol tax, remember, we got prohibition because of income tax. If you've been paying attention for the last few months. So anyway, the consumption tax, a heavier burden on the poor. The idea behind an income tax is to tax the wealthy based on their investments. The 1895 Pollock versus Farmers Loan and Trust Supreme Court decision was based on the fact that the tax was a direct tax but not a portion. Both conservatives and progressives portion tax meant that people living in a poor state would have the same tax liability as people living in a wealthy state, meaning that the people in a poor state would have a higher tax burden. Does that make sense? No one thought it made sense. There was great consternation. Everyone assumed the Supreme Court would realize the error of its ways. However, that would require bringing another similar case and then hoping the court would reverse its decision. And then what if that didn't happen? No one wanted to propose constitutional amendment either, and it might not get ratified. Progressives still campaigned for a federal income tax. In 1909, they attached a provision tax for an income tax to a tariff bill. Conservatives continue to favor tariffs and consumption taxes rather than an income tax. So the conservatives, hoping to do away with the idea for good, finally did propose a constitutional amendment, thinking it would die from lack of interest. The amendment stated that Congress has the power to enact taxes on incomes without apportionment. The conservatives were surprised when state after state ratified the amendment and it was signed into law in February 1913. We can all think of every people, right? I really hope you will all attend next month. It's going to be an exciting program. October 8th are the mayor and McInerney Ogle. I always have to practice her name. And Greg Johnson had that really long name for the interstation bridge. I can never say that. Right, that thing will be coming. We gave the Civics Ed Committee spent a couple of evenings writing questions, and they have 35 questions that we asked them, and they assure me they're going to answer all of them. We've invited the Portland League, who also sent in questions, by the way, so I think it's going to be a very interesting meeting. So I really hope everyone can attend. And what else was I going to say? I think that was it.
Portland League's coming by Zoom.
By Zoom, yes. Well, they could come in person if they wanted, right? But they probably won't. They asked for a Zoom link anyway, yes. So how many people are not at all familiar with ranked choice voting and you want some education? Oh, familiarity here. How about on Zoom? Oh,
Oh,
nobody's.
hold on, I need to go to a different view.
All of you folks on Zoom.
We're querying the Zoom, folks.
Who wants more? Who wants more education on ranked choice voting?
Do you need education on ranked choice? Anna.
Anna's is one who looked up and found the link. It's good information for us that we'll be sharing. And yeah, okay. So anyway, people who want some more information.
Judy Zader. Judy's got her hand up. 3 people.
Okay. We'll pursue that. We'll get some more.
Oh, and Lois. Oh, we're getting
Getting more votes?
more votes on the Zoom.
This is one more. Okay, yes, we will. Deanna, you're up. You've got like 4 topics.
I'm gonna go really fast. I'm Tracy Ryan Kelly right now. It's actually in Jackson. On our way to Jackson, Mississippi, but go right to it. Tracy is our lead historian, and this is the history moment that we published in the September Voter. I will warrant that none of you are familiar with the extraordinary life of Ruth Carr McKee, the League of Women Voters of Clark County founder. McKee was a social this astonishing facility.
Deanne? We can't see you on the camera. I'm
She
sorry.
lived in Vancouver for only a few years, 1926, but made her mark on Southwest Washington, primarily in Kelso for many years. Her husband was a civil engineer and he had worked in Vancouver during those years. Her early career was as a tireless advocate for women's higher education at the University of Washington, where she served as a regent from 1917 to 1926 and board chairman in 1923. She earned both her bachelor's and master's degree from UW. Her grandmother was Mary Richardson Walker, a missionary who arrived in Washington in 1838, pregnant and having traveled side saddle for over 1,900 miles. McKee wrote her biography in 1945. McKee was a longtime member of AAW, Daughters of the American Revolution, and the Round Row Club, Reading Club, the National Economic League, and the American Academy of Political and Social Science. She was president of the Washington State General Federation of Women's Clubs from 1913 to 1915, and director of the General Federation in 1916. She naturally joined the Vancouver Women's Club when she arrived in town. She had just finished being chair of the State Council of Defense of Women's Work section called the Minutemen Women in 1919. The league was absolutely perfect for McKee. This dynamo had been a member of the National Women's Suffrage Association and she knew personally President Harry Chapman at our LWE founded. 3 weeks after the 19th Amendment was ratified, our chapter began meeting. That was on September 23, 1920. And she, McKee, invited all the women activists to town. Citizenship was also her passion. Among the league's first actions was to establish a Vancouver citizenship school. And she sought access to education for all women, especially immigrants. In 1921, she led a chapter against closing the Women's Industrial Home and Clinic, a workhouse for women offenders. State legislators had decided to close it in favor of a more institutionalized secure prison. And Tracy leaves us with this quote from McKee. The League of Women Voters is not partisan, not sectarian, and does not favor a separate women's party. The League asks its members to think of themselves as American citizens and not belonging to class, party, sect, or sex. And she died in 1951. Thank you, Tracy. I'm co-chair of a state study that the League is doing. It's called the Impact of the Decline of Local Newspapers on Washington's Democracy and Communities. It is one of 2 state studies, and Sharon's going to show our very rough. I only wanted to put this up on the wall so we would have some dates here. The local news study is one of 2 state studies. The other is a shorelines management study. And maybe go to the next slide, please, Sharon. The League process, how we go about it, those of you who are newer or have not experienced the study, this is how we are able to advocate, lobby in behalf of legislation or take action. We get a study committee thoroughly investigates an issue or concern. Because of the news study, we're looking at the impact, the closures, and the shrinkage of local newspapers here in Washington is having. When the study is complete, a detailed report which study committee members write is reviewed by other League members who comprise a reading committee and a subject matter experts technical committee. From there, the study committee members develop consensus questions that go to members in the local leagues to consider and reach consensus. From that, we develop a position that, if it's approved, we can then advocate for various, laws, et cetera. There is a statewide meeting coming up that will, I don't think there's any details on the state website yet, but it's about how studies happen. So for anybody who wants, I think we could get some information, I'm sure about that. Briefly, could you go to the next slide? This shoreline study, there's a link here for anybody who's interested. It's also on the calendar. Could you go to that link, Sharon?
Oh, okay. Maybe.
This is the study that a committee started, I think, in 2019. They took a look at how effective the shoreline 50 years ago has been on shorelines with rivers, lakes, all kinds of ocean shorelines throughout the state. And the act was passed to take a look at how effective, well, the study is looking at how effective the act has been. The SMA's Shoreline Management Act study regulates development and use of shorelines and provides access to shorelines throughout the state. So, could you go back to the slide? There will be an informational meeting that people can log on to on September 24th to give you an overview of what the study came up with. All these studies are pretty lengthy. Ours is 150 pages, their study, and we realize that not very many committee members will want to read the whole thing. So the Shorelines group is doing a statewide meeting. And again, it is on the state website. If you want to tune in to see what the study results were. And then later, we'll see, and I know that Nancy has said that our Clark County League plans to review the study in November and December, respond to consensus questions. And then ideally, the state board will adopt a position, a policy. I think that's supposed to be in March.
Yes, mid-March.
Mid-March, okay, on the shoreline study. Then, next slide, please. The new study, the new study is, the report, we pretty much finished it up. It's getting a little bit of last minute. It's going to the state board, in October. We will be doing presentations from local leagues about what we discovered. We have a presentation on Zoom on November 14th for our league. And then we'll also have a statewide informational meeting. Again, not requiring or reasonably requesting 150 pages of our study. Then we will be discussing, ideally reaching consensus on a position or the consensus question in February and March, and ideally adopting a policy position in April. Sally Hale has also serving on the new study committee. Judy Stanton has been the chair of the reading committee. It's been an exhaustive bit of work. We worked 20 months on this thing. Some of us putting in certainly full time, 20 hours a week plus. We've got membership from Ellensburg, King County, Bellingham. And what we did was we took a look at all the national studies that have come up that have identified their great concerns about the decrease in the decline of local newspapers and how that is impacting various aspects of our community life, reduced voter participation, reduced candidate participation, impacts on public health, impacts on public financing, and decreases in civic education. There have been a number of states or federal studies, national studies, rather, nationwide studies, and I'm sure you've read a lot of the news articles out there. That until this study, there have been no comprehensive studies of what's happening here in Washington State. With this study, we hope that the league will consider what we might play in advocating, because we have found that there's such an important linkage between people knowing by way of their local newspaper or online site, etc., about their communities. And so that's part of it. I think I'm done. Sure. One of the things the communications team has been working on is trying to get people to log on and subscribe on, you're gonna go to the Club Express website, please. Sharon.
I am. Hold on.
So every once in a while, for instance, right after our meeting, or at least as soon as I can, my 4-year-old grandson. I don't know, it's like, I'm gonna write up a post about the forums that we have coming up, regular forums, you know, and we have information about them, you know, just came to us this morning. So I'll write up something and I'll put it in LWBC News. This is our news blog. If you would like to, and we're hoping people will do this, so they'll really make use of our website, that they will subscribe to the news blog. That means, we'll get a request from nothing like that, we'll only get one email. You'll have a email box about a new article that you just published. For instance, farmers market, now we have dates for the forums, we'll put up news, it's, you know, breaking news. Consider it big time, but you can sign up and Sharon's gonna walk you through how to subscribe, so you'll be getting notification. And you know, for instance, we have changed the times for the forums. The website will always have the most recent information about the events, so we really like to try to use the websites. So Sharon, can you show people or how do you?
Well, I've been playing, but I figured it out. So, basically you log into, our Club Express, you know, so you can see, I think they can hear me because the mic is right here. So you guys can see what? Oh, you can't hear me. Okay. All right. So, so you log into Club Express, and the trick of it all is you have to go to LWCC, this link, and click on that, and you're going to get a list of all this news. Well, in order to subscribe, you actually have to go read one of the articles. And if you're, yeah, it's no problem. But you go on one of the articles, and right here up in the left-hand corner underneath recent posts is a magic click link called subscribe. And that's it. And if you know, and so your goal is to go in there and have it say unsubscribe, don't click on that. And you're all good, and you will receive an email whenever our green
Publish something new under the news blog. So ideally this afternoon, I'll get something up there about 4 forums coming up with the most recent time and date.
Yeah, because the communications team is working in real time all the time, and not just for Medicaid.
And also, if you're on Facebook, please follow us. I don't know if you can call that up. No, you're not on Facebook.
I know how to do that. See, there's also the little on our website, you can click on the F in the corner.
No, you have a question.
My question is that news link available without signing in?
No,
No,
it's,
subscribing?
no, it's only for members.
Okay, understood.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. And thank you for explaining the studies. We will send out an email with the links to the meeting that is on the 15th, which really is about studies in general and how the consensus process works. And I have to say, when we get together to start going through those questions after you have a chance to review the study, the discussions that we have, those invigorating discussions, and I think you will enjoy both, the one about shorelines, the importance of protecting our shorelines and what's going on. With the act currently. And what the league would like to change, because that's really what it is about, is how well is it doing, how successful is it? The act that was passed 50 years ago that Tina mentioned, and what can we do to make it even better? And the discussion that we'll have, we're going to make that position for the state. Same process will work with the journalism study or the local news study that Dan has been working on so hard along with Sally. And we will go through the process. Look, the number of pages that she's got on there. 154 pages 3 times. And it's fascinating. You will enjoy it, actually. So, do we have anything else to come before this body today? Any question about anything that's happened today or where here? Everybody's excited about the forums that are coming up and getting involved in the studies. Any questions from anyone online? We have lunch for 2 hours for hanging in there and spending the morning with us. Have a great week ahead.